Isaac Newton, the man who defined the laws of the observable universe, spent more time trying to mutate base metals into gold than he ever did studying gravity, but he never published a single word about it. Centuries later, pop culture reaps the sanitized rewards of this toxic obsession. Edward Elric claps his hands to rewrite the laws of matter in Full Metal Alchemist. A scarred boy wizard guards a glowing crimson rock in the halls of Hogwarts. A wandering shepherd seeks spiritual enlightenment in the desert sands penned by Paulo Coelho. Modern fiction paints the alchemist as a mystical savant possessing the cheat codes to the universe. The historical record features significantly more heavy metal toxicity and significantly less magic. Welcome to Just Mythin' Around, where the pursuit of divine purity usually ends with severe liver damage. The story of alchemy stands as a chronicled obsession with perfection. Men stared into boiling flasks of sulfur, hoping to decode the blueprint of divine creation. This esoteric discipline eventually laid the foundation for modern science, but only after a millennium of charlatans, devout monks, and desperate kings sacrificed their wealth and sanity in the name of enlightenment. Adjust your posture and prepare for a descent into the toxic laboratories of antiquity. We trace a millennium of smoke and delusion, starting in the sun-baked temples of Hellenistic Egypt. The obsession took root during late antiquity as a quiet collision of disciplines in the fertile Nile Delta. Greek philosophical speculation crashed into ancient Egyptian metallurgical traditions. Artisans in Alexandria already knew how to manipulate matter for profit. They dyed glass to mimic precious gems and tinted cheap metals to resemble silver and gold. The true motivation of these early craftsmen held zero spiritual weight. Goldsmiths simply produced cheap imitations to sell to eager buyers who lacked the expertise to test the merchandise. By the 3rd and 4th centuries, the shift from simple forgery to philosophical obsession began with a scribe named Zosimos of Panopolis. In his surviving treatises, Zosimos documented the techniques of these local craftsmen, but he lacked the vocabulary of modern chemistry to explain what he was seeing. Watching base metals change color under intense heat, he interpreted surface oxidation as a biological process and concluded that metals possessed life. In this early theoretical framework, the nature of a metal divides into two distinct components. Soma represents the heavy earthly shell, the inert ash left behind in the fire, while pneuma represents the hidden spirit escaping into the air. The Greeks viewed this rising vapor as a mystical life force leaving the body of the metal, but modern science recognizes this escaping spirit simply as a highly toxic cloud of boiling mercury and sulfur gas. Based on this logic, Zosimos argued that to create gold, the artisan must first eliminate the base metal. Craftsmen took cheap copper and placed it into clay crucibles. They subjected the metal to roaring fires until the copper oxidized into a brittle black husk. In the minds of ancient scholars, this calcination process successfully eliminated the metal's earthly body. Next, the artisans ground the blackened remains into dust and soaked them in reactive sulfur compounds. As these chemicals reacted, they left a white or yellow hue on the surface of the copper. Because ancient observers judged material purity entirely by surface appearance, Zosimos interpreted this simple color change as a spiritual resurrection. He believed the artisan drove out the inferior spirit and forced a noble golden pneuma into the hollow shell of the copper. To complete the process, the craftsman built enclosed clay vessels to trap the rising vapors of mercury and arsenic. The toxic fumes condensed on the cooler ceiling of the vessel and dripped back down, creating a primitive reflux system. As the vapors continuously washed over the copper, they stained the material with a convincing golden sheen. To disguise these trade secrets from the uninitiated, Zosimos framed his laboratory procedures as a series of strange dreams. He wrote of falling into a trance and watching a priest taken apart piece by piece before boiling inside an altar-shaped bowl. The suffering priest in the text acted as a coded metaphor for the copper itself. As the intense heat broke down the chemical elements inside the crucible, Zosimos simply recorded the melting metal as an expiring vessel. The historical tragedy of early alchemy stems from desperate people attempting to replicate these dangerous recipes. Scholars and artisans locked themselves in unventilated workshops, believing they needed to seal the room to prevent the precious metallic spirits from escaping into the air. Consequently, they breathed in highly concentrated toxic vapors. Their hair fell out, and their skin erupted in sores. These men met an early end, while insisting they stood on the verge of uncovering the secrets of immortality. Humanity consistently demonstrates a remarkable willingness to endure slow suffering for a vague reward. Speaking of enduring mindless repetition to appease a higher power, algorithms demand their own kind of sacrifice. Hit the like button, subscribe to Just Myth and Around, and leave a comment below to feed the machine so we can continue exposing the dark absurdities of human history. The Roman Empire collapsed, leaving European scholars too busy surviving plague and invasions to worry about boiling flasks. The center of chemical experimentation shifted east to the Islamic world. In the 8th century, scholars in Baghdad translated the Greek manuscripts of Zosimos. They read his cryptic dreams of expiring priests and realized they needed a logical system, not more poetry. A polymath named Jabir ibn Hayyan stripped away the dense Greek mysticism. He wanted to know how metals actually formed in the dirt. Jabir built the sulfur-Mercury theory. He argued that metals grow deep underground by combining just 2 ingredients. Sulfur provides the fire and flammability. Mercury provides the liquid flow and metallic shine. Change the ratio of these 2 ingredients, and you change the metal. Gold exists as the perfect balance. Base metals like lead or iron are just flawed gold, suffering from a bad chemical ratio trapped inside the earth. To fix these geological mistakes in a laboratory, Islamic scholars designed highly specialized glassware. They transformed alchemy into early chemistry by perfecting the Alembic, a glass or copper still used for distillation. Scholars placed impure substances into the lower bulb and applied steady heat. The boiling liquid turned into vapor and rose into the domed head. The vapor cooled against the glass and traveled down a sloped tube into a receiving flask. This direct process isolated the pure essence of a substance from its heavy impurities. They also perfected sublimation. By heating solid compounds, they forced the material to turn directly into a gas, bypassing the liquid phase entirely. The gas condensed onto the cold walls of an upper chamber as newly purified crystals. Using these methods, Islamic scholars achieved genuine scientific breakthroughs. They isolated harsh acids and refined chemicals unknown to the Greeks. They manufactured sal ammoniac and eventually distilled pure alcohol. Yet, despite these discoveries, the ultimate goal remained tied to a delusion. Because they believed base metals only needed their internal ratios adjusted, they hypothesized the existence of a supreme catalyst. This concentrated substance could instantly rebalance the sulfur and mercury in any flawed metal. They called it elixir, a concept that eventually migrated to Europe as the legendary elixir of life. Jabir established the laboratory protocols that define modern science. He demanded meticulous measurement and the strict recording of weights for every experiment. The historical irony remains sharp. The man who laid the groundwork for systematic chemical analysis dedicated his life to synthesizing a magic powder that never existed. As laboratory techniques improved across the centuries, the endless boiling of metals took on a profound theological weight. Islamic mystics, particularly within the tradition of Sufism, looked at the repetitive work of the alchemist and saw a direct reflection of human spirituality. These thinkers adapted older ancient Greek philosophy and expanded the idea that the universe operates as a series of mirrors. They argued that the vast outer universe acts as the great macrocosm, while the inner human soul acts as the small microcosm. Whatever happens on a cosmic scale must also happen on a microscopic scale, and this philosophy applies directly to the chemicals in the flask. In this framework, the purification of matter serves as a living metaphor for the purification of the soul. If intense fire strips away the impurities of a dark base metal to reveal perfect gold, then rigorous spiritual discipline strips away the flaws of a man to reveal divine enlightenment. For these sincere practitioners, alchemy stood as a highly respected spiritual journey. The laboratory crucible evolved from a simple tool of metallurgy into an instrument for deep theological meditation. By the 13th century, these translated manuscripts crossed the Mediterranean and filtered into Western Europe. They landed directly in the hands of Christian monks. The quiet isolation of the medieval monastery provided the perfect environment for this blend of chemistry and faith. When these men read Islamic recipes detailing how to burn away the inert shell of a metal to resurrect a golden spirit, they saw their own theology staring back at them from the bottom of a glass flask. A German bishop named Albertus Magnus and an English friar named Roger Bacon eagerly adopted these practices. They built their own furnaces within the drafty stone walls of their cloisters. Scholastic thinkers like Albertus Magnus argued that God hid the secrets of creation within the structure of nature, and the only way to read the divine mind was to actively manipulate the elements. European practitioners eventually combined the Islamic concept of a supreme chemical catalyst with Christian ideas of divine salvation. This synthesis birthed the legend of the Philosopher's Stone. Scholars believed this ultimate substance possessed the power to instantly perfect anything it touched. It could cure all disease, grant extended life, and effortlessly turn lead into gold. The myth of the stone reached its peak with the story of a 14th century Frenchman named Nicolas Flamel. According to European legend, Flamel decoded an ancient magical book, synthesized the Philosopher's Stone, and achieved immortality. The historical record provides a much drier explanation for his immense wealth. The real Nicolas Flamel worked as a humble scribe and ran a highly successful real estate business. He never touched a boiling flask. Publishers invented the magical myth nearly 2 centuries after his death, simply to boost the sales of forged alchemical manuscripts. The Church quietly tolerated and often funded these smoky European laboratories. Religious authorities hoped these devout men would uncover divine secrets or produce endless wealth for the Vatican. Instead, cloistered monks ruined their own lungs with mercury vapors between prayer sessions, coughing in the dark while firmly believing their chemical devotion brought them closer to heaven. In the 16th century, a Swiss physician named Paracelsus abandoned the centuries-old hunt for artificial gold and the Philosopher's Stone. Rather than trying to mutate base metals or achieve spiritual immortality, he repurposed the tools of alchemy to heal the human body. Paracelsus pioneered the concept of treating disease with precise microdoses of toxic substances. To justify this new approach to medicine, he updated the old Islamic theories of how matter formed. He took their classic recipe of sulfur and mercury and simply added a third essential ingredient: salt. In this updated framework, the three elements mapped directly onto the human condition. Sulfur represented the flammable soul, mercury represented the fluid spirit, and salt represented the solid body, specifically the unburnable ash that remains after a fire dies. Paracelsus theorized that human illness occurred whenever these three foundational principles fell out of balance within the internal organs. To cure a patient, he utilized the exact same glass stills and distillation methods developed by his predecessors. But instead of trying to resurrect inert copper, the scientist extracted active medicinal essences from herbs and dangerous minerals. The physician prescribed highly controlled microdoses of mercury and antimony to purge sickness from his patients. He successfully treated disease by administering calculated heavy metal toxicity, laying the dangerous but necessary groundwork for modern pharmacology. The philosophical bridge between matter and spirit held firm for a few more generations. But the empirical light of the 18th century finally broke the connection. As the scientific revolution accelerated, a new generation of scholars prioritized mathematical proof and repeatable laboratory results. They moved away from cryptic metaphors about expiring priests and resurrected kings. The discipline officially fractured into two distinct paths. Chemistry emerged as an empirical science focused entirely on the observable mechanics of the material world. Alchemy, losing its mainstream academic standing, retreated into the shadows of occult mysticism. The modern world owes its scientific foundation to a millennium of mystical obsession. Before modern chemistry could synthesize antibiotics or map the human genome, it required generations of devoted scholars to invent the Alembic, perfect the process of distillation, and isolate the first powerful acids. Ancient practitioners mapped the basic behavior of matter through trial and costly error. Beyond the laboratory glassware, alchemy offered a profound spiritual framework for a fragile species. In an ancient world defined by sudden plague, famine, and the terrifying unpredictability of nature, the boiling flask provided a tangible way to interact with the divine. The practitioners who stood before the hot furnaces were not merely chasing financial wealth. They viewed the purification of metals as the ultimate mirror for the purification of the human soul. They sought divine perfection in a flawed world and mapped the mechanics of the universe in the process. Support the ongoing excavation of human history. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video to feed the algorithm.
This was just mything around. Knowledge is a weapon. Keep it sharp.